Have you ever felt like your English sentences are, well, kind of like separate islands? They're grammatically perfect, but they just don't connect? Well, in this explainer, we are going to build the bridges between those islands. I'm going to show you a super simple but really powerful way to link your ideas so your English flows naturally. Ready? Let's dive in. Okay, first up, let's talk about what I call the robotic English problem. This is that thing that happens when you're saying everything correctly, but it all comes out sounding like a list of choppy, separate statements instead of one smooth, connected thought. Here, let me show you exactly what I mean. Just listen to this. I finished the task, I sent the email, I left work. See what I mean? Each sentence is totally fine on its own, but when you put them together like that, they just sound disconnected and, yeah, a little bit robotic. Does that ring a bell at all? If it does, please do not worry. This is an incredibly common stage for English learners. And believe me, the fix is so much simpler than you probably think. You're in the right place. And this is really the key thing to get. Just because your sentences are correct doesn't mean they're going to sound natural. It's kind of like the difference between a thought that feels like a pile of separate rocks and one that flows like a river. See, native speakers are constantly connecting their ideas to show the relationships, the why, the what happened next, and the on the other hand. So the big question is, how do we fix it? Well, that brings us to the solution, what I like to call your 6-word toolkit. This is the simple secret to sounding way more fluent, and you really only need to get comfortable with these few simple words to make it happen. And here they are: and, but, because, so, although, and however. That's it. That's your entire toolkit. Just think of each one as having a very specific job. And is simple, it just adds information. But shows a contrast. Because is for giving the reason, and so shows the result of something. Then you've got although and however, which are basically just stronger, more formal ways to show a contrast. Okay, theory is great and all, but let's actually see this toolkit in action, right? We're going to take those robotic-sounding sentences from before and completely transform them into natural, flowing English. You'll see, it's like magic. All right, let's fix that first example. Instead of 2 separate sentences, we just connect them with and to add that second piece of information. I finished the task and sent the email. Boom. It's instantly smoother and sounds so much more natural. Now, let's look at contrast. Instead of saying, I wanted to help, I had no time, you just link them with but. So you get, I wanted to help, but I had no time. That one little word, but, immediately signals the conflict between what you wanted and the reality of the situation. Let's move on to cause and effect. This is a big one. Because tells you the reason why. So instead of saying, I stayed late, the task was urgent, you say, I stayed late because the task was urgent. And so shows you the result. Instead of, the system failed, we restarted it, you say, the system failed, so we restarted it. See, it's all about showing that clear, logical connection. And finally, let's look at those stronger contrasts. Although is perfect for when you want to show a contrast inside of a single sentence. Although the task was difficult, we finished it. Now, however is a bit more formal, and it connects 2 separate sentences, like this. The system is old, however, it still works. You see how however starts that new sentence? That's the key difference. Okay, so you've got the toolkit now, but let's talk about a few common traps people fall into. Honestly, knowing what to avoid is just as important as knowing what to do. This will help you use these words with total confidence and avoid any confusion. All right, you ready for a little challenge? I'm about to show you a sentence with a very, very common error. Take a look and see if you can spot what's wrong with it. Okay, here it is. I stayed late, so the task was urgent. Just think about that for a second. Does the logic there make sense to you? If you caught it, amazing job. The logic is completely backward. My staying late didn't cause the task to become urgent, right? The urgency was the reason I stayed late. So we need because. I stayed late because the task was urgent. This is such a classic mix-up, so definitely watch out for it. And here's the second trap, misusing however. You just can't use it in the middle of a sentence the same way you use but. It needs to start a whole new sentence to properly connect 2 ideas. So the correct way is, I was tired. However, I finished the task. All right, let's bring this all home. Using these simple words correctly isn't just about passing a grammar test. It's like unlocking a new superpower for natural flowing communication. Seriously. So what can you do now with this toolkit?
Well, you can connect your ideas naturally. You can explain reasons and results with total clarity. You can finally say goodbye to those short, robotic sentences. And maybe most importantly, you can guide your listener through your thoughts with real confidence.
And that's really the ultimate takeaway here. Becoming fluent isn't about memorizing hundreds of complicated vocabulary words. A lot of the time, it's just about mastering the essential little words that build connections. Because as we've just seen, small words can make a huge difference. Now the only question is, how are you going to use them to connect your ideas?